Welcome to another DirectionsMag podcast, co-hosted with our friends at URISA. I'm Barbara Duke, Editor-in-Chief here at DirectionsMag, and your host for today's podcast. The URISA DirectionsMag Podcast Series this year is exploring the theme of new and now. How did geospatial technology start where it is now, and where are some current focus areas or points of interest? Today, we have Judy Colby-George, GISP, and Kevin Volz, GISP. They've joined us to talk about the new and now of GIS in landscape architecture and geodesign. Judy and Kevin, it is a pleasure to chat with you today. Welcome.
Great to be here.
Thanks for having me. Been looking forward to this. Excited to be here.
Wonderful. So, Judy, how did you get started in GIS and landscape architecture?
Well, I have owned a GIS consulting firm for about 20 years. And then 3 years ago, I purchased a landscape architecture firm. So now we are working together. And a few years before I purchased that firm, I had started helping them with GIS things, either mapping or the firm that I purchased does a lot of visual impact assessments. So that meant helping with some view sheds and things like that. That really got me interested I was already interested in geodesign, but adding in the landscape architecture side of things really kicked that up for me. So it's been a great learning experience.
Very cool. Hey, Kevin, well, first, welcome back. For those that aren't regulars with us, Kevin was part of a panel discussing transitions in career a few years ago. We'll share that link for everybody if you're interested. So, Kevin, same question for you. How did you get started in this landscape focus area?
Well, it's an honor to be invited back. Thank you so much. So I got involved with landscape architecture before I knew what GIS was. About 25 years ago, my father opened a design studio, and I kind of grew up, in the office or being exposed to it pretty regularly. Helped my two older brothers set up the first servers and ran network cables to set up the first office. When I was in high school and throughout college, I helped support answering phones. Once I got into college during the winters and the summer breaks, I'd go back to Orange County. I'm in San Diego now. Head back to Orange County and help the design team using CAD to draw irrigation lines and just generally helping out wherever I could. About 15 years ago, or for the last 15 years, I've been plying my trade as a GIS professional in various roles. Started as an analyst, then got into development, got the opportunity to become a manager. And once I got into a leadership and management role for the last couple of years, the conversations with my dad have changed a little bit since I was asking more about his managerial challenges and we just talked about techniques and that kind of thing. And a couple of years ago, we sat down and he knew I was kind of looking for next steps and I was considering starting my own business, and he invited me to give it a shot in-house. And so there's a lot of synergy with landscape architecture and GIS, and I've been focusing on GIS and design ever since.
Very cool. And keeping it in the family, sounds like for a long time. That's cool. So, Judy, could you please share with us how you're using GIS currently in your landscape architecture projects?
Sure. We have a fairly broad range of landscape architecture work that we do, from backyards all the way to these large visual impact assessments of offshore wind, large electric power projects and solar projects. And so in any one day, I could be doing many things that would include making base maps for simple projects, to doing planning projects with communities in the area, looking at open space plans and pulling in all the GIS data to help the landscape architects think about the parks and how things are arranged within a town and who has access. And then leading up to the visual impact assessments, where the GIS side of that work is really the view sheds and bringing in very large amounts of LiDAR data and processing it, and then running viewshed analysis to see where it's likely that you could possibly see a project. And we use that to then figure out where to go take photographs. And then we use those surfaces to create photo simulations of what that project would look like in the future, so that we can do the analysis. And so, I mean, it's a lovely range of things that never gets boring.
Yeah. Well, that's such the nature of the GIS community, is cross-pollinating and many unique projects. Sounds like this area lends itself to that as well. Kevin, we'd love to hear about your projects now.
Certainly. So there's many ways we're effectively using GIS in our projects, in current projects. Before I get into some practical examples, kind of want to share how we think about leveraging and implementing technology in GIS. So the three main things we're focused on are leveraging technology in GIS to save money, save time, to do more with less, and ultimately to provide better services in our industry, primarily design services and that sort of thing. At the core, all of our solutions are centered around improving communication, becoming more efficient, creating better workflows. Trying to go from reactive response to kind of proactive planning, and ultimately to support better decision making. Since coming back to my dad's firm, Design Studio, one of the first projects I was involved with was a wayfinding signage project. So for a small city in the middle of LA, kind of surrounded by a bunch of other cities, they wanted to have an impact and really let people know, hey, welcome to, in this case, it was city of Gardena. So they really wanted to have some separation as you come into Gardena, welcome to the city, and make sure that folks who are visiting some of their important resources could get there. So that was a pretty straightforward implementation of GIS. We spun up web apps and field maps to kind of inventory existing signs, and then also used geospatial analysis to identify the best areas for these signs, to recommend where to place them, how many, make sure we're preserving the required setbacks as a resident is approaching an intersection, make sure we're the right distance away. So that's one application. We also use GIS quite a bit in-house, kind of internally serving. So that's to spin up base maps, kind of get some site orientation. We look at, with GIS, we can pretty quickly pull things like imagery, utility information, in some cases LiDAR, look at elevations. For larger parks, we typically get topos. We can pull that right into GIS, really to help our design teams orient themselves with the site. And we feel pretty strongly that it helps improve design from kind of concept all the way through construction documents, and then all the way also into construction and supporting it along the way. I've been working on a comprehensive database for all our projects. My dad's not going to work forever. We've worked on over 1,000 projects in and around Southern California and throughout California.
Wow.
And so in many ways, we're trying to get all that information into the fingertips of all our staff, especially as they work with clients. So, even if our staff hasn't worked in a particular city before, it's likely we've done projects that are relevant or similar, that are nearby, or a similar, similar scope. And then, on the client side of things, we've had a lot of success with what I've been calling virtual public outreach. Kind of just we've always done a lot of community outreach when we're considering doing making design considerations to try and come up with the best plan that, gets consensus. So creating a virtual environment for that has kind of exploded as far as being able to engage more customers. And it's not anymore, going into a room and having, one or two rowdy, loud neighbors kind of dominating the conversation. Now we're able to get a lot more feedback and gather a lot more intel on kind of that really helps inform the designs. And then some of the stuff we've been exploring this year, we got a high accuracy GPS devices and a small drone fleet, and we've been working on sort of more interesting 3D visualizations to really orient the designers and also communicate ideas, and so that both our clients, the cities, and our designers can really easily see the data about their site and make better decisions to ultimately come up with better designs.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Yeah, I'll just jump in a little and
yeah.
We've been using a lot. So a lot of what we do is visualizations and public participation also, and the designing of story maps. Everybody is just, super excited when you put their data into a story map. And
for sure,
those have been, we have found that the amount of participation that we get when we create one is, like Kevin said, it's just amazing how much more information we can gather, but the much broader group of people that it includes then from a community. It's not just the people who can manage to come out to the public meeting, but it includes the people who have very busy lives and can't make it to the meeting. And
right.
The number of people you're able to interact with just is astronomically better when you use those tools.
Well, it comes down to transparency, amongst the community and the people working on the projects, the people making the decisions. So important, I think, in today's world where we're trying to make sure we're getting authentic information.
Yeah, precisely, Barbary. That's in our, I think in our industry, sometimes a lot of times city officials are dealing with the public and there's a lot of sensitivity there, and that's a risky environment kind of compared to the day to day. And so I think in many ways that's been a surprise for me, just how sticky that has been, and like Judy said, just how broad of information sharing you can do with hey, scan a QR code and come see a project website that has all the details about the next meetings. And if you can't come to the meetings, here's the latest and greatest on it. Here's where the concept plans are, or here's where some designs are or ideas, or fill out a survey and lead some feedback. And so in many ways, we're able to capture all that data and consider it, and then mull over that to come up with the best solution for the entire community. And also with the survey stuff, we've been able to deploy that in multiple languages, which is important in the region we're in, and it's been a big win for us, and we feel like it's a pretty good differentiator.
Yeah, that story map platform, I have watched that grow over the years. It's amazing what it has become, and a great tool for sure. So here at Directions, we're always thinking and listening for what's next in geospatial tech. So Judy, I'm curious about what you are hoping to implement in your future work. Maybe new tools that you haven't quite plugged in yet and you're excited about?
Yeah. Well, I don't know how much time you have, because I could talk about this all day.
I've got time. Yeah, go ahead.
So, there's a lot of different aspects in which we're hoping to implement. At a very basic level, really thinking about, what are the best things to do in the GIS geospatial world, and then where do we pass it off to the landscape architects to do their magic, right? Like,
right.
Really thinking through that process is one thing that we're working on. We are very much interested, so we've started to dabble in City Engine and using it to start the geodesign process in a more technical way, but really being able to provide clients that ability to play with design before it's formalized. And that's been really great. And we hope to just get better and better at that aspect, and then be able to, in the best of all worlds, put that into some, game engine VR world. We're not quite there yet. I know there's people that are, but we aren't. And so that's one of the areas we're working in, and being able to enhance our visualizations, because almost everything that we do has to do with helping people to see or understand what different choices will mean in the future, and what can we do to maximize everybody's pleasure in a visual environment, right? Like, how do we make sure that development happens in the best way for a variety of parameters? How do we make sure that when we're creating these new alternative energy projects, that that they are, that we can attenuate as much as possible their impacts, but also be able to get them built. And then really thinking through how to use those 3D visualization tools, and getting better and better at making sure that our visualizations are both extremely accurate, but also communicating the story that needs to be told, and always thinking about it from that perspective. So there's a million things that we need, that we are thinking about working on, and deciding, which one is the highest priority for us is always the hard part. Like, we're all excited about different aspects, and figuring out, like, okay, well, right now we're going to work on this one. And then, and then later on we'll work on that part, and what order do we do them in? So we have lots of ideas, and I just think it's almost endless, the number of things that we could try. So it's more a matter of narrowing down all the options that are available, getting better at story maps, at dashboards, communicating the information we gather, getting better at how we get data in, where do we get data from when we go out in the field, doing good field data collection that we can then use easier. So there's lots of ways. I think there's so many things to learn and add to what we do. But always trying to think of it as, how do we tell the story that needs to be told? How do we make sure we're accurate? And then how do we make sure that we're using the right tool at the right time? So those are the things we've been thinking about.
Very cool. Kevin, what's on the horizon for you?
Well, yes, similar to what Judy said, there are just a ton of ideas, and we have a long roadmap and a lot of things we want to implement. We've since rejoining the firm, in many ways we've come a long way and revolutionized our current use of technology in GIS. We've, as a team, mulled over what would be most impactful quickly, what's the low-hanging fruit, but also where do we want to go with it, and yeah, so we have been focused on a few key areas. Most of them are centered on using technology, often GIS, just for, as Judy said, better ways of connecting and communicating data and really telling stories as it relates to parks and the communities. That really is, that's the main thing. Whenever I interface with anyone from the design team, it's always starting with the end in mind. Okay, we're going to make a survey. We're going to have a breakdown of said survey. What are those key elements we would like, that we think we're going to need to share? And then how can we work backwards from there to kind of curate the GIS and technology to best convey those things? So we're working on quite a bit, but some of the things we're really focused on are, as Judy says, well, really trying to make things as seamless and easy for the design team to get the benefits of GIS. So for my team, that looks like we still got a little bit of ways to go for The goal is comprehensive and seamless GIS to CAD integration, and that covers design templates all the way to coloring and using a whole suite of applications and processes to get there. Lately, I've been really impressed with what's called structure from motion. So that leveraging GNSS devices, drones, desktop applications, it's kind of like Google Earth, but much more high quality, since we're dealing with large scale local areas. A park is not the entire community. It's kind of just focused on where it's situated and maybe a couple of the surrounding buildings. And so that's been a really fun area that, like Judy said, that creates a very impactful visual that we can then put in the hands of our clients, our design team, and also the communities for better visualization and better communicating the story, what we're really trying to tell. I don't want to give away everything we're working on, but in many ways it's in many ways it's all about connecting and communicating digitally with clients and the communities, with what we're focused on, which is parks, open space, design, really working on cool projects, and also solving problems with technology and GIS.
Excellent. So I had a couple of follow-up questions. Both of you mentioned making things easier for your design teams or parts of the team. Would you guys mind sharing maybe some, like the largest pain points that we're experiencing with your teams that sort of led to finding better solutions?
Yeah, I'd be happy to take a stab at it first. So in talking to all the clients and our own team, a lot of folks in public works and the designers really can see the future. They in their words, "Oh, GIS, that's cool. GIS is the future." But I don't think they have as clear of as much information as someone who practices GIS regularly, like what that implementation means and what the final benefit is and how to get there. And so it's pretty rough to start at the very beginning of, okay, let's talk about GIS from, talking about points, lines, and polygons. A lot of times designers understand that, but now we're pulling in databases and the ability to look at data, to analyze data and use that. And so I try and focus on what's the end goal and how can we get them there as quickly as possible. So try and make it really easy for them to launch a project file and have access to aerial imagery, which is better than what we can see on Google, or have access to streets. They don't need to go and pull the latest streets from a REST service out there that they found. It's kind of, if we can streamline that and make it really easy as the GIS department supporting the designers, that's saved a lot of time, and they just kind of get the benefits of the end result quickly. And then they always come back with, oh, well, let's make it prettier and that kind of thing, which I think most of us involved in GIS, do have a passion for cartography, but we might not have a master's in graphic design, whereas a lot of these designers are super focused on the design. So now I view it as, let's support them with GIS and then ask them for the colors or the lines or points that they would like to really make it so they can effectively leverage benefits of GIS and use it to come up with better designs or tell better stories.
Yeah, good to know. I wouldn't have guessed that pain point, but that's interesting. Judy, anything over on your side?
I would totally agree. Like that, creating the base map for somebody, like when they were, tracing it in Illustrator from a map that they found somewhere. And, when you can say, oh, I can just get that data for you and give you a CAD drawing, that's a huge, that makes a huge difference in how long it takes to get that initial base map set up. So that's definitely, one point. And I 100% agree with Kevin. Like the two-way street of, I can spend I pride myself on making good maps, so that part I've always done, but I definitely have found that if I ask one of the designers to help with the colors, it's way faster than me going through a million different colors and just being like, oh, how does that look? How does that look? How does that look? And so that's definitely been a nice back and forth in both directions. So for sure, I would agree with that same sentiment.
So interesting. It reminds me of a time years ago somebody said, "Hey, I need a map with states." And I thought, "Okay, sure, I can make you a map with some states." And could you make them different colors? Thinking, it does more than just make colors. I'm just saying.
Right. And I was going to say that would be the other thing I would say is like helping people understand that the data is data, not just a picture, right? That there's something behind it that could be very useful in analyzing things, and really kind of working through that process of thinking about, using the data the way that GIS people think about using it, not just to make maps or base maps or something, but to actually use the data to answer questions. And once we create the data, instead of people counting things on a map or, like thinking about it that way, understanding that there are tools that we can use to kind of speed those processes along. So that's another area where I think, we spend some time really thinking about, well, what are the right tools at the right time?
Yeah. I think we get a little entrenched and forget that not everyone understands all the things that we do about the geospatial community, data, all the things involved. They're just thinking about, hey, I need a cool looking map. So interesting that is, still a question looming out there after all these years. But there's always somebody new, right? There's always somebody coming new to this technology from different areas. So one other question, and before we call it a day, both of you were describing ways that you're, have future plans and having to pick and choose. I'd love to know, and Judy, we can maybe just start with you. How do you have a particular process that you're deciding on, what's most important for you to start with, and where to implement first?
Well, I think it's a combination of, probably the things I'm most interested in, to be completely honest, but also, what projects we have, right? So what's coming up in which this would be useful. I mean, I might have 10 things that are useful, but if I know that there's a project coming and it would be really good if we figured this out before we got to that project, then that's probably, other than the things I like most, and not just myself, like all the staff, right? Like we all talk together and think about, and who has time. Like sometimes somebody, has a little more time on their hands. And so we usually have like a list of technologies and who's going to learn which one. And so then as people have time, they're able to advance in those directions.
Cool. Kevin, did you have any?
Yeah. So yeah, kind of as Judy alluded to, it's kind of an ever evolving thing, kind of based on the current situation. So where our design studio is at now, we're in a pretty good period of growth. So we're trying to get projects out there. So while GIS in some ways is a new venture, it's most important we secure the core and keep projects moving along. So we're always kind of balancing and looking at kind of what's most important. Like Judy said, looking far ahead and also in the short term ahead. What are things? Is now the time to get a quick win by really focusing on this? And since I've joined the company, I have had quite a bit of freedom to spin up my own GIS department. And now that it's become pretty integral to what we're doing, when maybe we have some designers who aren't as busy at certain times. So we've been focusing on not only education for the whole company about GIS, but also having some folks that are fresh out of school that typically have had some exposure to GIS. There's a great program at Pomona, Cal Poly Pomona, where a number of our staff came out that they really push looking at orientation and site design and leveraging GIS for some things. So I've focused a lot on education and scalability, and I think I got a little sidetracked there.
Oh yeah, no worries. Any other things that you guys would like to share about the work that you have going on?
Well, I would love to say that, meeting Kevin at GIS Pro last year was super fun because we just happened to bump into each other. And we're like, oh, I do GIS in a landscape architecture firm. And I'm like, oh, me too. One of the joys of being able to participate in those kind of organizations just really, and now we get to chat with each other on a regular basis and talk. And, I'm in Maine and he's in California, so we couldn't be further apart. We would never bump into each other randomly.
Sure.
So it's been a great chance to, to talk about stuff together and, learn things from each other. And I really look forward to that.
Yeah, I would second that, and similar to Judy. I mean, I don't know anyone else doing kind of what we're doing, and in many ways, being involved in the organizations and going to the events and the conferences is always nice to see what everyone else is doing in GIS, and then seeing if that can fit in this industry, in landscape architecture and design. I wouldn't have expected web GIS, essentially to be such a big win and kind of and nowadays an easier implementation than ever in GIS. And so, I've kind of, and also in educating our staff and also the clients we work with and that kind of thing, I've moved away from saying GIS as much. And now I typically frame it as technology and maps. And it's like, oh yeah, we do GIS, but we really are focusing on implementing technology for better solutions. And we leverage GIS and, we do maps and all that kind of things. But that's been, I think in many ways, been easier for clients to get on board with some of the new services and capabilities we're offering nowadays.
Yeah, it's one of my favorite things about the geospatial community at large is the collaborative nature that has always been rooted in the beginnings. It's so important. I know it's made a difference in the work that I've done over the years, and I'm happy to see that it really is still part of the fabric that makes us who we are. Well,
yes,
thank you both for being
part of.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was just saying it's a great collaborative profession to be a part of. I mean, it's just amazing.
Yeah. Well, thank you both for joining us today. I just remind everybody listening to stop by DirectionsMag.com for the latest geospatial news, exclusive articles, live and on-demand webinars, and of course, more podcasts. Also encourage our friends to visit URISA.org for support in all stages of your geospatial career. They've got, you guys mentioned GIS Pro, but I know that they have ongoing educational as well as opportunities to network and, like the two of you, meet people doing the same types of work and have an opportunity to work together and grow. So thank you both It's just a great pleasure. We hope everyone goes and makes it a great day. Tell a friend about URISA and Directions Magazine.